They actually put me in handcuffs for fishing on my own lake. That's right, that's me being treated like some kind of fellow on a broken bar, all because I had a fishing rod in my hand on land I legally own. It started with the HOA president next door, your classic Karina, who called the cops on me not once, but 5 times in just a single month. Each complaint more ridiculous than the last. He's stealing our fish. He's contaminating the lake. Even it's a possible terrorist gathering. But here's the kicker. Those 5 bogus emergency calls, they ended up costing her a staggering $1.2 million. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because you're about to hear the most outrageous HOA revenge story ever. I'm Ben Carter. I'm 38. And after 15 years of grinding as a landscape designer, long hours, 0 vacations, I finally made my dream come true. I poured my entire life savings into 15 acres of pure heaven. The highlight of it all, a gorgeous, crystal clear, 3-acre lake, teeming with bass, bluegill, and catfish. On my very first morning there, I was up by 6 a.m., setting up by the lake with a folding chair, my tackle box, and Lucky, my golden retriever, stretched out in the grass beside me. A light mist floated over the water, and the sunrise bathed everything in gold. It was exactly the kind of peace I'd worked my whole life for. I'd barely been fishing 20 minutes when I heard it, the high-pitched buzz of an electric golf cart coming straight toward me. At 7:15 a.m., no less, the cart came flying down the hill like it had divine orders to stop me, nearly launching into the lake before slamming to a stop. Out jumped a woman, maybe 60 years old, hair pulled back like a drill sergeant, wearing something that looked like it came from a military surplus store. She started yelling before I even stood up, "Stop right there, what do you think you're doing?" She screamed, pointing at me like I was committing a felony. I turned around slowly, rod still in hand, totally baffled. Fishing?" I said, because honestly, what else would I be doing? Fishing? You're stealing from our community lake. That's theft. She shouted, her face turning a deep purple as veins popped from her forehead. "Ma'am," I replied, trying to keep calm even though my peaceful morning had just been wrecked. "This is my land. I just bought it last week. I've got the paperwork right here." But she wasn't interested in facts. "No way. This lake belongs to Oakwood HOA. We've managed it for 2 decades. You're trespassing and taking what doesn't belong to you." So I pulled out my phone and showed her the deed, complete with a clear map of the boundaries. "See this line? That's the edge of my property. And look at this entire lake as well within it." Her purple face turned ultraviolet. "Fake. You forged this. I'm calling the police." And she did. That's when I found out her name, Mildred Peabody, president of the Oakwood HOA. She dialed 911 like she was reporting a home invasion. "There's a man stealing fish from our lake," she shouted. "He could be armed. Send officers right away." Armed? I had a fishing rod and a sleeping golden retriever. The scariest thing about me was probably my coffee breath. Within half an hour, 2 squad cars rolled up, sirens flashing like they were answering a bank robbery. Officers Davis and Thompson stepped out. Davis looked about 55, the kind of guy who'd clearly had one too many run-ins with HOA types. I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. Mildred ran up to them like she was saving the neighborhood. "Arrest him. He's stealing. Check his bucket. It's full of our fish." Davis looked at me, then at the empty bucket by my chair. I hadn't even caught anything yet. He looked back at her and you could practically see him calculating how soon he could retire. "Ma'am," he said slowly, like explaining something to a toddler, "grand theft fish isn't a real crime." He turned to me. "Is this your land, sir?" I handed over the deed, survey documents, everything. Davis checked the coordinates on his tablet, pulled up the county database, cross-checked everything. It was all legit. "Ma'am," he said, "he's well within his rights. He's fishing on his own property. That's not illegal. In fact, it's about as legal as it gets." Mildred threw a tantrum like a kid denied candy. "No, that lake has historical HOA access. Look it up." Davis sighed. "Ma'am, I've been doing this job 20 years. There's no such law stopping someone from fishing on their own land. And frankly, you're the one trespassing right now." Her face contorted with rage. "This isn't over," she growled at me as the officers began packing up. "I have connections. You'll regret ever moving here." Once the police left, I grabbed my phone, set it on a tripod, and started live streaming. "Hey, what's up guys? Ben here. So I just had the cops called on me for fishing on my own lake." No joke. I turned the camera and caught Mildred still standing there, rage texting someone while shooting me death stares. That's Mildred, the HOA president next door. She thinks my lake belongs to her. Spoiler, it doesn't. And I've got the paperwork to prove it. The chat exploded. Comments poured in. Karen alert. Sue her, bro. And my personal favorite. This is gonna be good. The viewer count shot up 500, 1,000, 5,000 and climbing. I had no idea that this was just the start of the wildest month of my entire life. Later that evening, an older man strolled over. Mike Johnson, 70 years old, white beard like Santa, and a longtime local. He looked around like he was checking for spies before easing into a spare chair. "Quite the performance this morning," he said with a grin. "You saw that?" I asked. "Son, everybody saw that. Mildred's meltdowns are famous around here," Mike said with a chuckle. "But listen, to be careful. She's not just annoying, she's dangerous." "Dangerous?" I asked, confused. "She's just a crazy HOA president." Mike lowered his voice. "Last year, the HOA had $200,000 earmarked for road repairs. They spent 50. Guess who showed up driving a brand new Bentley?" My eyes widened. "No way." "Oh, there's more," Mike said grimly. 3 years ago, they got an $800,000 federal grant for flood control. And yet, we still flood every time it rains. Where did all that money go?" That night, I couldn't get Mike's warning out of my head. $800,000 in federal funds just vanished. I opened my laptop and started investigating. I scoured public records, grant databases, home meeting minutes, anything I could access. Then, around 3 a.m., I found it. A federal flood prevention grant issued in 2021, $800,000 awarded to the Oakwood HOA. I clicked through to the final project report. Status: incomplete. Funds disbursed: $800,000. Funds accounted for: $125,000. I stared at the screen, heart racing. I even did the math on my phone calculator just to be sure. $800,000 minus $125,000. That's $675,000 unaccounted for. Gone. Disappeared. I muttered to myself, wait a second, a broken bar. Mildred took what from flood victims? And now she's obsessed with my lake? Drop your theories in the comments, because what happened next, totally insane. Day 7 started like the other. Coffee, lies to myself about being productive, breakfast, and a peaceful stroll down to the lake. I'd only been fishing for about 10 minutes when I heard sirens. Not one, not two, 3 squad cars came flying down my driveway. I turned around and, sure enough, there was Mildred standing dramatically in rubber gloves, with a gas mask dangling around her neck like she was leading a hazmat drill. "He's contaminating our water supply," she shrieked the moment the cops stepped out. Officer Davis was back, and I swear he aged another year just laying eyes on her. "What poison, Mrs. Peabody?" he asked with the tone of a man already tired of life. "Worms," she shouted. "He's introducing biological contaminants into the water. Those worms carry disease, parasites. This is biological warfare." She pointed at my bait box like it was filled with radioactive material. Davis walked over, peeked inside, and looked like he was trying not to laugh. "Ma'am," he said patiently, "these are fishing worms from the bait shop. They're literally meant to go in the water. That's how fishing works." But Mildred came armed with printed out web pages. "My research shows earthworms can carry E. coli, salmonella. He's tainting the groundwater. I demand a hazmat team to test the lake, now." Officer Thompson, the rookie, was clearly holding back laughter. "Ma'am," he said gently, "fish eat worms. That's why people use them as bait. It's been done for a broken bar well, forever." Mildred snapped, spinning toward him like a cobra. "Are you a biologist? An environmental scientist?" "No." "Then don't lecture me about contamination." Before Thompson could respond, Davis intervened. "Mrs. Peabody," he said, visibly exasperated, "this is your second false emergency report. I'm officially logging this. One more, and you could face charges for misusing emergency services." I had my phone recording the whole thing. Day 7, Folks, apparently I'm now a bioterrorist because I use earthworms for bait. You can't make this stuff up. The live stream chat exploded. Viewers were posting laughing emojis, comments like biological warfare via night crawlers, I'm crying, and give this woman her own Netflix show. The view count shot past 50,000 and was still climbing. After the cops left Agana, Mildred lingered on the edge of my property, snapping photos and aggressively typing on her phone. I could hear her muttering about environmental attorneys and EPA regulations before she stormed off in her golf cart. By day 14, I had changed my fishing schedule to 5 a.m., hoping to avoid her, but apparently, Mildred had adjusted hers too. Just as the sun broke over the lake, the cops rolled up once more. This time, she came with equipment, a decibel meter, like the kind used at construction sites, illegal noise levels. She declared, waving it around like she was defusing a bomb. He's engaging in sonic harassment. She pointed at me just as I cast my line, the soft whip of the rod barely audible over the chirping birds. Thompson checked the meter. Ma'am, it's reading 15 decibels. That's quieter than a whisper. Your breathing is louder than that. Mildred turned beet red. It's the frequency, not the volume. That whooshing sound travels across water and disturbs the peace. People are trying to sleep at this hour. Davis rubbed his temples. Mrs. Peabody, most people are sleeping at 5 a.m. because it's 5 a.m., not because of fishing rods. It's literally impossible for that sound to be disruptive. This is your third false report, he added, more sternly now. But Mildred wasn't backing down. She pulled out a binder. I have 17 complaints from residents who say they can't sleep due to this man's activities. Davis flipped through the pages. Ma'am, all of these are signed by you. You can't submit 17 complaints on behalf of others. I turned to my camera. Fishing rod equals weapon of mass disturbance. You heard it here first. The view count broke 200,000. Someone donated $50 with the message, buy a quieter fishing rod. Even Davis cracked a smile at that one. But day 21? That took things to a whole new level. This time, it wasn't just the police. Somehow, Mildred had convinced a building inspector to join the party. 5 patrol cars and a city truck pulled up to my land. She was practically dancing. Unauthorized construction, no permits, code violations, shut it all down. She yelled. She pointed at a broken bar, my $20 folding camp chair. The building inspector, a guy named Tom in his 50s, stared at the chair, then at Mildred, then back at the chair. That's a camping chair, ma'am, Tom said flatly. It's a structure. It touches the ground, therefore it has a foundation. Where's the permit? Where's the architectural review? Mildred snapped back, rattling off what sounded like random code violations. Tom just stared at her. It's a folding chair from Walmart, ma'am. It's not a building. It's a broken bar, furniture. Temporary, collapsible furniture. But Mildred wouldn't back down. She stormed over to the chair and shook it. He sits in it every day. That makes it a permanent installation. It needs a permit. I held the chair up to the camera and said, apparently this bad boy needs a building permit. Anyone know a licensed chair architect? The chat went wild. Build a throne made of chairs. Someone wrote. Another person donated $500 with the caption, for your chair permit fund, bro. The viewer count ticked past 500,000. Officer Davis quietly pulled me aside. Between us, she's filed 47 complaints this week. We legally have to respond to every one. Boot to broken bar, we're on your side here. Just keep doing what you're doing. Then came day 28 at the grand finale. Mildred must have decided to go scorched earth. 7 squad cars showed up along with the police chief. She was already screaming before anyone got out of their cars. They're holding a secret meeting. I have proof. He's plotting something dangerous. She bellowed, pointing at me. I was standing beside a small charcoal grill, cooking 2 hot dogs for Lucky, my dog. The police chief, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s named Chief Williams, took in the scene. Me, my dog, 2 hot dogs sizzling over coals. Ma'am, she said dryly. He's grilling. That's not a secret meeting. He's cooking hot dogs. But Mildred whipped out her phone like it was a smoking gun. Look, evidence. See these pictures? The hot dogs are their signals. And that mustard bottle, it's in Arabic. He's communicating. The chief leaned in and looked. That says a French is mustard. It's made in Detroit. It's in English. Sleeper cell, Mildred shrieked. He's been using phishing as a cover, recruiting, planning, plotting. Chief Williams had had enough. Mrs. Peabody, she said sternly, one more bogus call, and you're getting arrested for abusing emergency services and filing false reports. This is your final warning. Mildred turned on her, face red. I'm protecting America. I'm a patriot. The chief's expression didn't change. You think patriotism is hot dogs? Ma'am, you need help. Serious, professional help. I couldn't stop laughing. Guys, I told my live stream audience, apparently I'm a domestic threat because I grilled hot dogs for my dog. Lucky is now officially my sleeper agent. The viewer count broke 1 million. The chat was just rows and rows of laughing emojis and running jokes about terrorist condiments for several minutes straight. Right in the middle of Mildred's meltdown while she was shouting at the police chief about whether ketchup could be classified as a coded substance, someone approached me. It was Sarah, the HOA secretary, mid-30s. Always looked like she was under extreme stress whenever Mildred was nearby. She waited until Mildred was distracted, then slipped over quickly, glancing around like someone being watched. Mr. Carter, she whispered, hands trembling, I can't keep doing this. She's completely unhinged. Her voice cracked, but then she added something that made my heart stop. And it's not just the insanity she's stealing. Like he a broken bar really stealing. I leaned in. You mean the missing funds Mike told me about? Sarah nodded quickly. Then she pulled a USB stick from her pocket. Everything's on this. 5 years of records, fake invoices, shell companies, bank transfers, all of it. Why are you giving this to me? I asked, taking the USB carefully. Tears welled in her eyes. Because next week, she's planning to claim your lake has environmental violations. She's bringing in a fake inspector to condemn the property. Then the HOA can seize a broken bar for community safety. She paused, eyes haunted. I've already watched her do this to 3 other families. I won't let her do it again. She started to walk away, then turned back. The password is a flood victims 2021. And, Mr. Carter, a broken bar, that's $675,000 you found online? That's just from one grant. She gave a shaken sigh. The real number is much worse. Then she hurried away. That night, hands shaking, I plugged the USB into my laptop. One by one, the files opened. Spreadsheets of incoming funds of federal and state grants, HOA, followed by outgoing payments to companies that didn't exist. Entities like Peabody Consulting LLC, registered in Delaware, with no employees or office space. Flood Prevention Solutions Incorporated, tied to a P.O. box, dissolved 6 months after getting paid. Transaction after transaction all linked back to Mildred. And the total wasn't $675,000, it was $823,000. That's what Sarah was afraid of. That's why Mildred had just sent me a text. Final warning. I spent the entire night sitting with my lawyer, Marcus Henderson, going through the files. We lined up everything. Bank statements, home meeting notes, fake invoice trails, corporate filings. Marcus was a small-town attorney used to property disputes and fender benders, but even he knew this was serious. Ben, he said, this isn't just embezzlement. We're talking federal wire fraud, money laundering, tax fraud. If this holds up, she's facing 20 years minimum. We worked until the sun came up, building the cleanest, tightest evidence package we could. So what's the move? I asked. Marcus gave a small grin. Tomorrow night's the monthly home meeting. Best chance to go public. But Ben, a broken bar once this goes live, there's no turning back. She's going to come after you hard. I nodded and got to work. I sent out an anonymous mass email to every homeowner in the neighborhood. Emergency home meeting. Urgent financial crisis discovered. Come see where your money went. The response was immediate. Sarah texted me updates all day. She's shredding papers, calling lawyers, trying to cancel the meeting. Too late. Over 200 people confirmed they were coming. I spent the day preparing, set up 3 cameras at different angles, battery backups, a mobile hotspot in case she tried to kill the internet. I wasn't taking any chances. No tech issues, no interference. By 7 p.m., the community center was overflowing. People were buzzing, confused, anxious, suspicious. They knew something was going on. They just didn't know what yet. Mildred showed up looking like she'd aged a decade overnight. Her signature hairstyle was a mess, her makeup smeared, hands trembling as she took the microphone. False alarm, she muttered into the mic. Just a simple bookkeeping error, everyone, Mildred said quickly, gripping the mic with white-knuckled hands. A misunderstanding. Meetings cancelled. You can all go home now. But I was already standing. Actually, I've got something everyone needs to see. Her face drained of color. You're not a member, she snapped. You don't even belong here. Security, remove him. Too late. My laptop was already connected to the projector. I may not be a member, I said, but the 2 million people watching this live stream are very curious about where their tax money went. Gasps rippled through the room. Dozens of phones came out. The whole crowd started filming. This was it. No turning back now. The first slide appeared on screen. Federal Flood Prevention Grant A 2021. Amount received, $800,000. Murmurs echoed throughout the room. Everyone remembered the grant, remembered the promise as a storm drains, levees, flood control. Next slide. Amount actually spent, $125,000. The murmuring grew louder. People were shifting in their seats. Some stood up, visibly upset. Final slide. Unaccounted funds, $675,000. The room exploded in chaos. People were yelling, demanding explanations. Mildred was screaming into the mic, calling it all lies, fake news, and threatening lawsuits. But I wasn't finished. I clicked again. Up came bank records, her name, exact dollar amounts, dates matching transfers from HOA accounts. January 15th, $50,000 to Peabody Consulting, an imaginary company. February 3rd, $75,000 to Flood Solutions Inc., registered to a P.O. box, with no employees. March through December, $550,000 to similarly fake company SL. Tracing back to her, the tension in the room hit a breaking point. Some people were crying. They lost everything in last year's floods, disasters that might have been prevented with that stolen money. Mildred inched toward the exit, but angry neighbors moved to block her path. That was a broken bar that was for long-term projects, she stammered. For future emergencies. In your personal account? I asked, switching to the next slide. There it was, her Bentley purchase made the same week as the largest transfer. Silence fell over the room. Then, from the back, someone shouted, voice cracking, my mother died in that flood. You stole money that could have saved her. Everything erupted again. People were surrounding her now, some visibly shaking with rage. Wait, I shouted. There's one more thing. Please, let's do this the right way. Let justice handle it. I clicked to the final slide. Total funds missing, $823,000. Siphoned over 5 years from grants, HOA dues, state infrastructure budgets, and emergency allocations. The number hung on the screen. The crowd went still, and right on cue, whether by fate or perfect planning, the doors opened. FBI agents stepped inside, led by Agent Johnson, the one I'd been working with quietly for days. Mildred Peabody, he said calmly. She tried to run, didn't make it 3 feet. You're under arrest for federal grant fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. As they cuffed her, something inside her snapped. It wasn't that much, only $700,000. No. Wait, I mean, Agent Johnson raised an eyebrow and smiled. Ma'am, you just confessed a broken bar in front of 2 million live stream viewers. Her face cycled through red, white, and green as she looked around and realized just how many phones were recording her every word. I want a lawyer, she shrieked. You'll need one, Johnson replied as they led her out. But even in handcuffs, she wouldn't go quietly. This is Ben's fault. He set me up. I'll sue everyone. You'll all pay for this. Once she was gone, the remaining HOA board members gathered for an emergency vote. Dissolve current board? 198 yes, 0 number. Launch full forensic audit? 200 yes, 0 number. Sue Mildred for damages? Unanimous at 200 yes. Marcus stood and addressed the crowd. Taking into account the stolen funds, fines, legal penalties, and punitive damages for breach of fiduciary. A broken bar. He did the quick math on his phone. Mildred Peabody owes this community $1.2 million. The room burst into cheers. Some people wept with relief. Justice was finally happening. I closed out the live stream. Thank you for watching. Share this. Let people see what happens when an HOA goes rogue. And remember, document everything. Ask questions. Never let power go unchecked. As people celebrated and I packed up my gear, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored Ida but picked up. Mr. Carter, a smooth voice said. David Peterson. I represent Mrs. Peabody. She's in federal custody. I replied flatly. Not for long, he said. And once she's out of Broken Bar she has resources you can't imagine. This isn't over and not even close. Then he hung up. Across the room, Sarah was smiling for the first time in years. People were hugging, clapping, crying with joy. Mildred had been arrested but she wasn't defeated. Not yet. What was she planning next? If you think Ben's still in danger type justice in the comments. Sure enough, she was released on $500,000 bail the very next day. And Marcus was right as she came out swinging. Her first move, lawfare. Her legal team, Peterson Walters Associates, was known for getting politicians off the hook, burying evidence, and intimidating witnesses. Within days, they filed lawsuits against everyone. Me for defamation, Sarah for unauthorized disclosure of confidential records, the HOA for wrongful dismissal, even the FBI for false arrest. She's throwing spaghetti at the wall, Marcus said over coffee. None of it will stick, but she's hoping to overwhelm everyone, stall the process, and scare them off. But the community stood strong. Within 48 hours, a GoFundMe for legal support raised $50,000. Local news picked up the story, then regional, then national. Headlines were everywhere. Karen versus the fisherman, trial of the century. HOA president stole from flood victims. How one fishing trip uncovered federal fraud. Every media outlet in the country wanted an interview. But I kept redirecting the conversation. This isn't about me, I told every reporter. It's about justice for the people who suffered in the floods. It's about holding the powerful accountable. Meanwhile, Mildred was launching her own PR campaign. She hit the talk show circuit, looking intentionally disheveled, tearfully casting herself as the victim. I'm the one who's been wronged, she said on a popular morning show. Ben Carter targeted me, from the moment he arrived. It was nothing but trouble. The host raised an eyebrow. You called the police 5 times. For fishing on land that belongs to him. For a second, Mildred's carefully constructed mask cracked. He was committing fishing crimes. There was a long pause. Fishing crimes? The host repeated, stunned. That clip exploded online within hours. Memes were everywhere. Someone mocked up a fake action movie poster titled Fishing Crimes, in theaters this summer. The hashtag #FishingCrimes was trending nationally, but Mildred's lawyer, Peterson, was playing a dirtier game behind the scenes. A private investigator started tailing me. My tires were slashed at Weiss. Sarah began receiving anonymous threats in the mail. One morning, I opened my front door to find a dead fish with a note. Stop now, or you'll be sleeping with them. Marcus wasn't fazed. Classic intimidation tactics, he said. Means they're running out of moves. Just keep documenting everything. And I did. Every threat, every suspicious car, every glitch in my security cameras. The FBI was compiling a rock-solid case, and every act of harassment was becoming another nail in Mildred's legal coffin. Then came the bombshell. The prosecution uncovered Mildred's historia. This wasn't her first rodeo. A former employer, a marketing firm in the city, stepped forward. Patricia Coleman, the company's CEO, gave a recorded deposition. She stole $400,000 from us over 3 years, she stated. We uncovered it during a routine audit. We didn't press charges, we just wanted her gone without scandal. I regret that decision every day. This established a clear pattern, not a one-off, a career of corruption. Prosecutors began preparing a RICO case. And Mildred, she was unraveling. One day, she cornered me outside a grocery store. No lawyer, no entourage. Drop the charges, she whispered. I'll pay back half of what you stole? I asked, stunned. You know that's still a felony, right? I'll give you the lake, she added, her voice cracking. I'll sign it over. I'll move out of state. You'll never see me again. It's already my lake, I replied. And you're going to prison, Mildred. That's how consequences work. As I turned to leave, She grabbed my arm. "You don't know who you are dealing with. I have connections. People who owe me favors. This won't end how you think." I pulled away, but her words echoed in my mind. That night, Mike came by with news that changed everything. "Ben," he said, spreading documents across my kitchen table, "I figured out why she wants your lake." He pointed to county development plans. "They're building a new interstate extension," he said, "right through your land. The state's been planning it for 5 years." I scanned the blueprints. If this was accurate, my land would be worth at least $5 million when the government bought it for the highway. "She knew," I whispered. Mike nodded. "Her brother-in-law's on the planning commission. She's been buying up land along the route through dummy corporations." This wasn't about HOA drama. This was about setting up a fortune. Everything clicked into place. The accusations, the fake violations, the fabricated environmental claims. She wanted me to sell under pressure so she could flip it for millions. This was no longer just local fraud. It was a conspiracy, potentially involving corrupt officials. I called the FBI. Agent Johnson reviewed the files carefully. "This changes things. We're adding public corruption to the case." This just became much bigger. As the trial approached, the intimidation escalated. More dead fish. My mailbox was smashed. My security system inexplicably failed it twice. But every incident just built our case stronger. Then, on the eve of trial, Marcus called me. His voice trained. "Ben, her team's pulling a last-minute stunt. They're bringing in a surprise witness who claims you poisoned the lake. They say they have evidence." My stomach turned. "I've never put anything in that water except worms and fishing line," I said. "Doesn't matter if it's true," Marcus replied. "All they need is reasonable doubt." "Peterson's playing dirty." I sank into my chair, overwhelmed. Who would lie for her? Who could? Then it hit me: the brother-in-law. The planning commission. This ran deep. Just how far was Mildred willing to go? The morning of the trial, the courthouse was swarmed with reporters. News trucks lined the street. Protesters and flood victims held signs demanding justice. Inside, the courtroom was standing room only. Court TV was broadcasting it live across the country. Prosecutor Jennifer Chen stepped up to deliver her opening argument. She didn't waste a second. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant stole $823,000. Her voice was sharp, deliberate. Money meant to prevent flooding, while families lost homes. While senior citizens drowned in their own houses. While children saw everything they owned washed away. Mildred Peabody bought luxury cars and designer handbags. One by one, she revealed the evidence via bank transfers, photos of damaged homes, statements from flood victims, and then photos of Mildred's Bentley, vacation trips, and shopping binges. The jury looked horrified. Several jurors stared at Mildred with outright disgust. Then came Peterson's rebuttal. "My client is a grieving widow," he began. "She lost her husband and made mistakes in her grief, but this Mana Ben Carter targeted her, provoked her." He gestured toward me as if I were the criminal. Peterson stood at the podium, trying to paint me as the aggressor. "He pushed her," he said, voice rising, "provoked her until she broke." Prosecutor Chen was on her feet instantly. "Objection, Your Honor. The defendant's criminal activity began 3 years before Mr. Carter ever moved into the area." Sustained, the judge said without hesitation. Peterson's momentum collapsed. Then it was my turn. I took the stand, heart steady but voice firm. Chen walked me through everything, carefully and clearly. "Mr. Carter, can you describe your first interaction with the defendant?" she asked. I took a breath. "She called the police on me for fishing in the lake I legally owned, on land I had just purchased, with full documentation." "And how many times did she contact law enforcement about you?" "5 times. In 30 days, I said, each call more absurd than the last. I walked the court through each ridiculous reporter, from bio-warfare worms to terrorist hot dogs. By the time I got to that one, jurors were openly trying not to laugh. One elderly man actually snorted at biological warfare by earthworm. Even the judge hid a smirk behind her hand. And during a broken bar barrage of harassment, Chen continued, "What did you discover?" "That she had embezzled over $800,000 from federal flood prevention grants, some money that should have protected homes and saved lives." The courtroom went dead quiet. The contrast between her petty, obsessive harassment and the massive fraud hit hard. Peterson tried to rattle me on cross. "Mr. Carter, isn't it true you began digging into Mrs. Peabody the moment you moved in? That you were looking for dirt on her?" "No," I said. "I just wanted to fish in peace." She escalated things. "I only started looking into finances after a neighbor mentioned something wasn't adding up." He shifted tactics. "You live-streamed her humiliation to millions. That was the plan, wasn't it? To destroy her reputation?" I looked him straight in the eye. "I streamed for my own protection. If someone calls the cops on you 5 times for phishing, you start documenting. If she confessed to federal crimes live on camera, that's on her." Then came the surprise witness, exactly who I feared, Mildred's brother-in-law, Tom Richardson, from the Planning Commission. But the prosecution was locked and loaded. "Mr. Richardson," Chen asked sweetly, "you're related to the defendant?" "Yes." He stiffened. "Yes, but it doesn't affect my testimony." "And isn't it true that you stand to gain personally from the proposed interstate that would cut through Mr. Carter's property?" "Yeah, I don't know what you mean." Chen held up a stack of papers. "These are incorporation documents for Richardson Development LLC, which coincidentally owns 17 properties directly along that proposed route." Tom crumbled. Within minutes, he was fully cooperating. "She promised me the lake for $100,000, he said she'd use fake environmental citations to push him out. I didn't know about the other fraud until later." The defense's case fell apart completely. Sarah took the stand next. Her voice shook, but her testimony was strong. "She made me forge invoices. When I hesitated, she threatened my job or my family, said she'd ruin me if I ever talked." Then Patricia Coleman, Mildred's old boss, sealed the deal, testifying about the previous embezzlement at her company. The pattern was clear. Mildred wasn't just corrupt, she was a repeat offender. Finally, Mildred took the stand in her own defense, and it was a train wreck. She contradicted herself, blamed everyone, then broke. "I took the money," she snapped, "but I deserved it." "Do you know how hard it is running in HOA? The hours, the complaints." "I earned it." Chen waited until she was done unraveling, then calmly asked, "So you admit to stealing $823,000? "It wasn't stealing," Mildred huffed. "It was a broken bar compensation, for my time, my expertise." Even her lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the bench. The jury deliberated just over 2 hours. When they returned, not one juror would look at Mildred. The foreperson stood, on the charge of federal grant fraud, guilty; on the charge of embezzlement, guilty; money laundering, guilty; conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. Mildred shook her head like a broken wind-up toy. Number. "This isn't happening." Judge Martha Williams wasn't done. "Mrs. Peabody," she said, voice cold and clear, "you betrayed the public trust. You stole from the vulnerable during their time of greatest need. You show no remorse. You take no responsibility unless forced. I hereby sentence you to 8 years in federal prison." Mildred staggered, but the judge continued, "You are further ordered to pay $823,000 in restitution, and an additional $377,000 in penalties. Total owed, $1.2 million. The courtroom erupted in cheers and tears. Flood victims hugged one another. Sarah cried. Even the bailiff looked emotional. As Mildred was cuffed and led out, she turned back. I expected rage, but she was a broken bar, smiling. That same cold, knowing smile I'd seen when she first threatened me. "Enjoy the lake, Ben," she said. "For now." The marshal nudged her forward, but she kept talking. "You think you won? You have no idea what you've started." No idea. The doors closed behind her. And despite the warm courtroom and cheering crowd, I felt a chill run through me. What was she smiling about? What did she know a broken bar that we didn't? Smash that like if you smell something fishy. She saved us, Mrs. Chen said every time we ran into each other. You told the truth when no one else would. I always gave her the same answer. I just wanted to fish in peace. Sometimes, the biggest change comes from the smallest stand. The local news did a one-year anniversary piece titled How a Fisherman's Fight Against Corruption Transformed a Community. I declined most interviews, but agreed to one short segment. This was never about fame, I said. Fish don't care how many views your video gets, they just care if the bait's good. Other HOAs across the country had started adopting what they called Ben's rules: recorded meetings, public financial records, term limits, and no emergency powers that could be abused. It was turning into a full-blown movement. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived with a federal prison postmark. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. The handwriting was unmistakably Mildred's, precise, but a little softer than I remembered. Ben, prison gives you time to think it. Too much time. Maybe I was wrong. After Harold died, I lost my grip. It started small. 1,000 here, 5,000 there, just to cover things. Then I couldn't stop. It became about control. About power. The lake wasn't about fish, it was about someone challenging the little kingdom I'd built. I'm in therapy now. I'm learning about grief and control. Maybe it's too late. But I wanted you to know I'm trying. Thank you. Strange as it is to say, you stopped me. Without your pushback, who knows how far I would have gone, or how many more people I would have hurt. Enjoy the sunrise. The lake really is beautiful. A Mildred P.S. I caught my first fish in the prison pond yesterday. A tiny bluegill. I named it Hope. I read it twice, then handed it to Sarah. You think she means it? She asked. Maybe, I said. Prison changes people, or maybe she's working her parole angle. But something about this one feels real. A week later, another letter arrived. Same postmark, but this time, the handwriting was rougher. Mail, slanted. You won. But I left you a gift in the lake. Happy fishing. It wasn't from Mildred. I knew that handwriting now. This was someone else. Someone new. I took it straight to the FBI. Agent Johnson examined the note. Jaw tight. We'll increase patrols around the lake. Could be a bluff. Could be one of her old contacts stirring the pot. Either way, don't fish alone for a while. But I couldn't stop wondering. What kind of gift? And who was this if not Mildred? 5 years had passed since Mildred's first 911 call. Our annual Justice Day fishing tournament had become the town's biggest event, of 500 people casting lines, raising thousands for flood relief. The lake that once symbolized division was now a source of unity. I was older now, grayer, still in the same chair by the same spot every morning at 6. Sarah and I had gotten married 2 years ago. She was expecting our first child, a daughter. We were naming her Hope. Mike had passed last year. We honored him with a bench by his favorite spot. The plaque reads simply, Mike Johnson. He always knew the truth. I often sat there, updating him about the town, the fish, the people he helped without even knowing it. That morning, a local news anchor's voice caught my ear in the bait shop. Former HOA President Mildred Peabody was released on parole yesterday after serving 3 years of her 8-year sentence. She has indicated plans to return to the area. I told Sarah that evening. Her hand instinctively moved to her belly. You think she'll come here? She asked. It's a public lake now, I said. She has as much right to fish as anyone. She gave me a look. That's surprisingly zen of you. 5 years of morning fishing teaches you patience, I said with a smile. Besides, one wrong move sends her right back. A week later, I heard familiar footsteps at dawn, slower, more cautious. Is this spot taken? She asked, softly. Her voice was smaller now, fragile. She looked older. Gray hair, thrift store clothes, a garage sale fishing pole. I didn't turn. Public lake, fish wherever you want. She settled 50 feet away, giving me space. We fished in silence, awkward, but not hostile. An hour passed before either of us spoke. She reeled in a small bass, her first real catch outside prison. The joy on her face was genuine. Nice catch, I said quietly. She glanced over, surprised. Thank you. I practiced. Prison pond. Anger management. We fished a while longer. Then, she broke the silence again. Ben, I need to say something. I held up a hand. No need, just fish. She nodded. Some apologies are too big for words. Later, as I packed up, she suddenly called out, the letter, the second one. That wasn't me. I turned. I know. The handwriting didn't match. She frowned. What second letter? Her face showed real confusion, or the best acting I'd ever seen. Someone sent a letter, I explained. Said they left me a gift in the lake. Signed it M. Her face went pale. Oh, go to Broken Bar Tommy. My eyebrows lifted. Who's Tommy? My cousin. Helped with shell companies. He always blamed you. Said if you hadn't interfered, none of this would have happened. She looked around before continuing. I told him to drop it. I told him I deserved what I got, but he never listened. What gift? I asked. Jaw tight. I don't know, she said. He's not violent, just dumb. Watches too many crime shows, probably tried to frame you for something. I made a mental note to call Agent Johnson again. Even 5 years later, the drama hadn't fully died. But as I walked to my truck, I felt calm. Mildred was a fractured woman trying to heal. Tommy was a fool who'd eventually get caught. That evening, my phone rang. The emergency dispatcher was laughing. "Ben, a broken bar, you are not going to believe this." In the background, a painfully familiar voice. "Someone caught a bigger fish than me." "That is not fair." The dispatcher sighed. "Mama, broken bar, is this Mrs. Peabody?" A pause. Maybe, Mildred. The dispatcher groaned. "We've talked about this. You can't call 911 because someone's using better bait." A flustered reply. "I know, I'm sorry, old habits. It's just he was cheating. I'm going back to therapy. Sorry." Click. The dispatcher came back on the line. "Some people never fully change, I guess." I smiled. "At least she's not yelling about terrorism anymore." "Progress," she said, chuckling. "Have a good night, Ben." I hung up. Sarah looked at me, amusement in her eyes. "She called the cops again?" I nodded. "Fish envy." We laughed, our hands resting on her belly. The future stretched out at a calm, hopeful, full of quiet mornings and gentle ripples on the lake. The fish would always be biting, the lake would always be here. And sometimes, the best catch a broken bar wasn't a fish at all.